Welcome to Mr. B's Bookshelf. Today we're going to start a new book. The book that we're going to do is called Shadows of Jamestown. So this is a great book, especially for your fourth graders. It talks all about Jamestown, and it actually has a mystery too. So if you like mysteries or you like to figure out something that happened and go on a kind of scavenger hunt to figure out the clues and everything like that, then this book is for you. The paddle of the canoe was the only sound in the thick night air, barely audible as it slipped in and out of the water, drifting steadily. Like a shadow across the calm of the river, it blended with the darkness. As the canoe neared the island, a shadow hopped into the knee-deep water, tugging the small craft ashore and into the clearing, hidden among the tall reeds. Once the craft was secure, the figure reached into the canoe, lifting out a small duffel bag. Crouching, the figure scanned the trees for movement, then glanced back at the black waters of the James River to ensure no one had followed. The faint call of a whippoorwill rang out from the trees. The untrained ear would have dismissed it as a common noise in the night, but the silent visitor knew it was much too late for a songbird's call. A figure emerged from the tree line, advancing toward the undergrowth that still hid the first shadowy figure. Neither shadow spoke, they only traded simple nods. The person from the woods exchanged a wooden box for the duffel bag, completing their transaction. Both people knew the small box contained a relic of incalculable value, while the duffel contained bundles of money, whose value was quite measurable. In fact, the dollars had been accumulating nicely in a hidden bank account for the past several months since the secret smuggling ring had begun. A handshake took place before the first shadow silently returned to the river and the canoe. The figure from the trees remained, a moment longer than needed, watching the moon emerge from the clouds to cast a pale glow across the water. The figure considered how the river could have looked quite similar hundreds of years ago, in the times when the first people lived alone near these waters amongst the trees. They were dangerously unaware of the European settlers who would soon be crossing the great ocean. First in just a trickle, then as a great flood, the settlers would nearly wipe out everything that was once precious to the people known as the Powhatan. The buzz of a cell phone interrupted the historical musings, pulling the figure's thoughts back to the current century. It was a reminder to keep moving, or there would be questions. And questions would lead to problems. The recent discovery of the West Wall was a monumental event. As one of the earliest remnants of the first Jamestown settlers from 400 years ago, it was making news around the world. Everyone had an interest, and interest meant money. A lot of money. Chapter 1. I just can't leave you here like this, Mom said, her voice a little shaky. I didn't think I'd have to do this for at least a few more years. You boys are growing up too fast. Sam stood awkwardly with his mom and his brother, Derek, in the grassy area in front of the dorms at the College of William and Mary in Williamsburg, Virginia. He and Derek and their friend Caitlin had been invited by Professor Evanshade to spend a week as part of a summer program at historic Jamestown. And it wasn't just a regular summer camp like most kids their age went to. This was called field school. It was a program to assist with Jamestown's archaeological digs. Most of the other attendees were graduate students. Many came from the University of Virginia. But there were also people there from colleges all over the country. The college students spent 6 weeks in field school, but Caitlin, Derek, and Sam would only be here 1 week. Professor Evanshade had called to invite all three of them to visit just as school was ending for the summer. Knowing how they loved history, they met Professor on several past adventures when they had found lost coins in a mine, tracked a treasure from the American Revolution, and after an incident at the Civil War Museum at Tredegar. It was going to be awesome. Derek shot Sam a look, and Sam knew his brother well enough to guess exactly what he was thinking. The sooner they could get Mom to leave, the better. Come on, Mom, said Derek. It's not like we're actually going to college, and it's only a few days. We'll be fine. Mom nodded and wiped an eye with a shaky hand. He never let Derek see it, but Sam was feeling a little shaky too. Or maybe he was just nervous. He'd never spent a week away from home before, and even though it would be fun, he had worried he'd miss his parents. One good thing had already come from the experience, though. He'd finally be able to convince his parents to give him a cell phone. Derek had one for nearly a year now, something he had reminded Sam of at least 3 times a day, and Sam was now quick to point out that he'd gotten a cell phone at age 11, while Derek hadn't gotten his until he was 13. "You two are going to have so much fun," Mom said. "I have such great memories of this place from when I was in college. Did I tell you about the time we—" Yeah, you told us that story," Derek said. "We just have to go find a dorm room, so now's a good time to say goodbye." "I can help you unpack," Mom said. That sounded like a good idea to Sam. He had no idea how to find their room or figure out where to meet Professor Evanshade. "Mom," Derek groaned, "it's a boys' dorm. You really don't want to go in." Mom sighed. "Okay, you two go and get settled. Then we'll go to Professor Evanshade's office." Derek looked like he was in pain. "You don't have to do that. We'll find it." "I'm not leaving until I deliver you to Professor Evanshade personally," said Mom. "Now go unpack and I'll wait here." Sam followed Derek into the dorm building, struggling with his sleeping bag, pillow, and suitcase. As they trudged up the stairwell, sweat dripped from Sam's forehead. "Come on, slowpoke," urged Derek. "We're going to spend all days on the stairs if you don't hurry." Sam groaned and tried to ignore his older brother. He wanted to get out of the staircase too. It had been 90 degrees in that airless space. They finally emerged from the stairwell onto the 3rd floor. Derek had found their dormitory room halfway down the hallway. "Here we are," he said, busting into the room. "Home sweet home." "Just for a week," said Sam. "Close enough," answered Derek. "Feels like we're in college though, doesn't it?" "I guess," Sam answered, unrolling his sleeping bag onto the bottom bunk. He hadn't had to share a room with Derek for 2 glorious years, but it was a sacrifice he was willing to make if it meant coming to field school. He put his clothes in a drawer and set a flashlight, toiletries bag, and a couple of books and his phone on the dresser. "Mom's waiting for us. We better hurry." Derek stood in front of his dresser, combing his hair in the mirror on the wall. "Just a sec. I want to make sure I look good for all the college ladies. Think they might dig the younger man type, don't you think?" Sam rolled his eyes. "Give me a break." His brother was heading into 8th grade, but he usually acted like he thought he was going to college. If he were half as mature as he thought he was, life would be a lot better for everyone. While Derek primped, Sam pulled the curtain and looked out the window onto campus. Williamsburg was only a short drive from Jamestown, so the participants of field school stayed in the dorms at the College of William and Mary. It was one of the oldest colleges in the country and set right on top of colonial Williamsburg, a place full of history and archaeology in its own right. They'd visited Williamsburg before during an adventure at the Wythe House, where they'd ended up chasing a bad guy named Jerry. Sam wondered whether he'd prefer to go to a school in a quiet, tree-covered setting like this or one in a bustling city. He wasn't sure, but he figured he had plenty of time to decide. Right now, he was just glad to be on summer vacation and not yet starting 6th grade. Middle school had seemed to be like a big change, and he wasn't looking forward to being one of the youngest kids at school again. When Derek had finally declared that his hair perfect, the brothers went back outside. Even though it was summer, people were everywhere. College-age students, tourists, groups, and families. It was one of those Virginia summer days that got hot early and stayed that way. Sam was pretty used to warmer weather now, different as it was when he lived up north. Most of the year was nice, but the mugginess sometimes still surprised him. They found Mom, and someone was with her. "Look who I found," said Mom. "Hey guys," Caitlin waved at Derek and gave Sam a quick hug. Derek snickered and Sam shot him a dirty look. He was always going on about Caitlin being Sam's girlfriend. But they were just good friends. She was a great investigator, and Sam thought she might be even more excited about this camp than he was. "Isn't this amazing?" said Caitlin. "I can't wait to get over to the dig site." "I know," said Sam. "Me too." "Let's head out into the car and I'll take you over to Jamestown and the field school," Mom said. Derek pointed at the building behind Caitlin. "Is that where you're staying?" "Yeah, it's nice. Do you have a roommate?" Derek asked, a sly grin on his face. Sam wanted to groan. Mom was ahead a few paces and hadn't heard. Caitlin frowned. "No, they gave me a single, which at first I was sad about, but I guess it'll be good to have my own space." She nuzzed Sam in the ribs with her elbow. "Besides, I had you guys to hang out with, right? So it shouldn't be too bad." Sam nodded with a smile. Caitlin was an only child. She probably would have preferred a chance to meet more girls her age, but all the other people in field school were college age or older. He couldn't imagine having to live with a stranger who was that much older than him. Sam had Derek, but he wasn't sure if that was lucky or not. I can't believe we're going to be working where the first settlers came to America, Caitlin gushed. There's no place like it in the whole country. Isn't that exciting? She had been reading nonstop about this area's history and was already peppering Sam with facts. Isn't that where Pocahontas lived? Asked Derek, who barely done any research at all. He tended to jump into things first and figure them out later. Somehow, he didn't mind looking clueless. Caitlin frowned. It's so much more than that. Derek, I love Pocahontas, but she was a small part of the story. You'll see. Sure, replied Derek. Captain Jack Sparrow and all that, I remember. Sam shook his head. Wrong movie, dummy. I think you mean Captain John Smith, said Caitlin. Derek flashed a silly grin. Right, I was just testing you. They drove 15 minutes down the road until they reached Jamestown, following the signs for the historic section on the island. Caitlin barely stopped talking long enough to take a breath, or at least that's how it seemed to Sam. They pulled up to a building called the Visitor Center. The lady at the front desk directed them to Dr. Evanshade's office down the hallway. It should be right around here somewhere, Mom said, glancing up at the room numbers. Well, that's preposterous, a voice yelled from inside one of the offices. Sam thought he recognized the professor's voice. I'm getting sick and tired of all these accusations, said the voice sternly. There is no way such a thing could have happened. Furthermore, who in their right mind would want to do such a thing? It was the professor, all right, but Sam had never heard him sound so cross before. Well, something's happening. We're not quite sure what, but we've met Professor Evanshade from the door, and we'll have to pick that up next time and figure out why he's kind of being a little mad and angry about something. So that was the end of chapter 1. So we'll see you in chapter 2.